Good evening, everybody, and welcome back. We're back from executive. Welcome to Tuesday, June 17th, regular board meeting of the West Seneca Central School District. We did roll call, went to executive session, and came back. So now we're going to begin. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we did save the pledge to do it now. So, Vince, if you would lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can get your picture with the superintendent after. Hand you over to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty, and good evening, everyone. I have some updates that I'd like to share with the board, and I'd like to start my superintendent's report by raising awareness for the Board of Education and also for the community regarding the distraction-free learning environment and the law that goes into effect when school resumes this fall. So just a little framing of this as to why we're here as a school community. There's been research that has been emerging around our students' use, children's use of technology, social media exposure, and screen time, and the implications that that's having in our school, and specifically the distraction that cell phone and personal devices are having in the classroom. That led to Governor Hochul passing a law through the April's budget, the state budget, to pass a law to ban personal technology devices in schools this fall. So what does that mean? Well, the requirement is that every school district, charter school, etc., has a policy regarding internet-abled devices that restricts student use of them during the school day, anywhere on school grounds during the school day. Further, it requires that in creating this policy and adopting this policy, we involve stakeholders in that process. So recently we launched a parent survey to get feedback from parents. I have met with students and bargaining units, our teachers union, etc., to get input on that. So when the policy is adopted and finalized, we have to be visible and transparent in communicating that policy, have it clearly posted on our website, and of course we'll be sharing that information with families. Some of the definitions that I think are important for us to understand is that this is often referred to as the cell phone ban, but in actuality, it goes beyond just smartphones. It actually includes any internet-abled device. And so internet-abled devices could include a tablet, a smartwatch, or a cell phone. That all of those devices that are internet-enabled cannot be utilized during the instructional day. The school day is defined by this law as well. The school day is from the start of the instructional day until the end of the instructional day. There are no carve-outs during the instructional day, meaning that internet-able devices are not allowable at passing times, in the lunchroom or cafeteria, or in study halls, recess. It is from the start of the school day till the end of the school day, and anywhere on school grounds during that time. School grounds, by our code of conduct, is all-encompassing. Even if we were to take a field trip, that is considered school grounds. So one of the requirements in this is that we know that parents may, throughout the day, get messages to their student about changes in dismissal or changes in how a student might be going home. I'm going to pick you up instead of riding the bus home. We need to communicate with parents how they can get messages and communication to their child during the school day. So think back to when many of us may have been in school. That would often be calling the main office as an example. But we need to communicate with parents the ways in which they can communicate messages to their student during the school day and make that be known to parents. In addition, our policy also needs to describe and explain how personal internet-enabled devices can be stored during the school day, such as storage in a student locker. The policy may authorize student use of personal electronic devices for a few exceptions, and those exceptions are listed here. If, for example, a student has health-related needs, We have children who are diabetic that need to monitor their glucose levels, and they have an app on their phone to do so. So a child in that situation may have a medical accommodation that's submitted to the school and reviewed by school personnel to allow them to have an exception to that policy. And other exceptions are listed there. For legal protections, a student cannot be banned from using their device if it's allowable and acceptable by their IEP, their individualized education plan, or a 504 accommodation plan, which protects those students who may have disabilities. Additionally, there's an annual reporting requirement that comes along with this. School districts will need to annually report certain things and make this information known. We have to publish a report of any violations with the cell phone policy on an annual basis for the upcoming school year. We'll have to submit that by September 1 of 26. And to provide demographic information on that. One of the things that the state is going to be looking for is, are we equitably applying this policy and equitably enforcing these rules? Or might there be some student demographics that are being targeted or have higher rates of discipline as a result of this than other student groups? Specifically within the law, it articulates that we cannot suspend a student for device usage alone. We can have progressive discipline or other discipline measures, but not simply for using their device. So in terms of next steps, we have received a sample policy from Erie One BOCES Policy Services. I assembled a group of stakeholders to review that sample policy. We met on June 9th to review that sample policy and to enlist the feedback of our teachers union, of CSEA, and of our administrators and leaders within the district. I've also met with student leader groups at both East and West Senior High School. That occurred on June 9th and June 12th to get that feedback from stakeholders. And then parents and guardians were given an opportunity to provide us feedback on what we're considering in terms of how devices are stored during the school day. So that survey you may be familiar with, but really asked parents and guardians to give feedback on what is your feedback related to the student keeping the device and carrying it on their person during the school day. The device has to be off, but could potentially still be carried by a student. So that was one option for us to manage this. The second option is off and away for the day, stored in a locker or other storage unit, such as a locker. Every one of our students at the secondary level is assigned a locker. I know many of them do not currently use a locker, but they do have a locker that's assigned to them and available. And then the last would be considering some type of device. There's pouches that are being marketed that students would store their device in a lockable pouch, and it would be locked in the pouch at the start of the day, unlocked out of the pouch at the end of the day. So it would be locked in inaccessible and not able to be used during the school day. As a result of these changes, we are updating our code of conduct. Next on the agenda, you'll be hearing from Jackie Fowler to give an overview of the code of conduct changes specifically related to this. And then we have to allow for public comment related to those changes in our code of conduct before the board ultimately adopts the code of conduct. We have another meeting scheduled tomorrow. Our plan at that meeting is to finalize the implementation plan. How are we going to recommend that devices be stored during the day? And after making that recommendation and decision, then communicating that plan out. So at the request of the board, when this was brought up, I believe it was our June 3rd meeting, the board had requested that we handle the procedure the same way at each level. That, for example, at West Senior, they're not using yonder pouches, and East Senior is using lockers to store their devices. But yet, I think the board also recognized that the way in which we handle elementary children may be different than the way in which we handle our high school students. And so, based on the feedback of the board, I'll be guiding that group to develop a plan for the storage of internet-able devices during the school day that is consistent across our elementary schools, our middle school, and our high school. The implementation of our plan, one of the things we're considering is, should this plan be progressive? For example, send an initial message of, we trust our students to follow the rules, to have their devices off and stored away for the day. If a student demonstrates that they're not able to follow those rules after maybe 1 or 2 more warnings, then we have additional measures for those students who have demonstrated that they're not following the rules. And maybe those students then have to have their device stored in the main office or stored in a yonder pouch, because it is on us to enforce this policy. So I would like to just ask if the board has any initial questions or feedback, because we will be meeting tomorrow, June 18th, with our stakeholder group to really look to finalize this plan. And before I open it to questions, one that I wanted to respond to is some of the feedback that we received from the parent survey was concerns regarding student safety, and parents saying that they want their son or daughter to have access to their phone during the school day in the event of an emergency. And I appreciate and I understand that. I do. I have girls that are school-age girls, and I understand that the world that we live in and the reality is that we need to be concerned about the safety of our students during the school day. But one reflective question that I want to ask you to just consider is, God forbid, in the event of a crisis and an emergency where your child's safety is in danger, do you want them distracted looking at a device? Or do you want them fully aware of the situation and analyzing and assessing, should I run, hide, fight? What are the adults telling me to do? What is law enforcement telling me to do? If it were me as a mom and my child's in a life-threatening situation, I do not want them distracted. I don't want them texting me. I want them focused on what they can do to protect themselves and to get out of that dangerous situation with no harm. So I just share that as perspective, both as an educator and a mom, because we have the shared responsibility and I think the shared vested interest that we want our students safe during the day. But we are being bound by New York State. This is a law. We did not choose this. This is a law that we are being expected to enforce and will be enforcing come September. But of course, we want feedback from stakeholders as to how we best navigate this law. So with that, I'll just pause in case there's any reflections, feedback, or questions from the board.
If I could just add on to that safety portion, if there was some type of emergency at the school, it's not just the fact of them texting the parents ultimately think then they're going to come and save the day, which ultimately from the law enforcement side, we now have to pull resources from being actually inside the building, addressing the crisis, to now handle keeping the parents away from the building. So it's actually a negative thing for the parents to essentially be informed so quickly and then show up at the building. So from that, for the safety standpoint, it's definitely a negative for the phones to be accessible.
Any other thoughts or questions from the board?
What discipline can be given? Is it just like a detention then if they're caught?
Yes, and it can be progressive discipline. For example, maybe the first offense is a warning. The second offense, the phone is taken and the child gets it back at the end of the day. The third offense, a parent might have to come and pick up the device, up to now you're really demonstrating you don't have the self-control during the day. So we're going to keep the device, and I don't care to look at kids' phones. We would keep the device in a sealed envelope that the student can sign the sealed envelope, or a yonder storage pouch, so that it's away for the day and we can ensure that we're doing that. But certainly things like detentions are allowable, other forms of discipline, but the law specifically indicates that we cannot serve out-of-school suspensions for students. Anything else from the board on that topic?
I think I just want to add that it's important that parents get behind this and help the teachers, because the teachers can't be taking up classroom time to be enforcing this if kids aren't following it. So it's important for all of us to get behind it, whether we like it or not. It's something that we have to do.
I'll add, one of the reasons I don't like it is I don't want to have the teachers and the staff and faculty be more focused. We've already got enough things where they're not teaching. So I just, I don't want to become more hallway monitors and more, like babysitters over phones. I'm hoping that everyone's cool with it, but it could be a major factor to take away from issues. So
I think there's a lot of our environments that already have a policy in place that this would be either aligned with or that it won't be a huge variation from. I know even my high schooler has several places she's already has to have her phone put away and out of sight during class, so it shouldn't be a huge change for many of our students.
It's been our practice in kindergarten through 8th grade already. Our middle schools have been off and away for the day with students storing them in their lockers. So for kindergarten through 8th grade that would be going into 1st through 9th grade next year, it really isn't a change for them. The greatest change will be for our upper grade level students at the high school level.
Get equated to the same level of those of us who are in our 50s. There was a time when you couldn't, okay, so Ed and I, there was a time when, putting a seatbelt on seemed like an invasion of our freedom, right? And my children have been raised with, so when they tell me, they remind me to put my seatbelt on almost immediately. I think that once children are freed up from these things from the day, they're going to find that it's liberating. And I think they'll find that they can live quite well without that constant draw. I'm glad that, we're looking at this as an educational matter and really the negative impact it's having on kids' learning as well.
And I appreciate you focusing on the positive aspect of this. I don't appreciate the way in which the law came about. I advocate for us to have local control of our schools. That's why we have a school board, to have local control. So I'm not necessarily appreciative of the way in which this came about, but nonetheless, the positive impact that I anticipate it will have on our learning environments, and equally important, is the social interactions of our students. Our schools, particularly cafeterias, at times are eerily quiet, where students are not interacting with one another, but on their devices at the high school level during the lunchroom cafeteria time, on looking down at their phones in the hallway and not interacting with peers. So while I'm not appreciative of the way it came about, I am looking forward to minimizing distractions from learning, and also what I hope to be increased socialization of our students and increased social interactions.
And I just am appreciative that Governor Hochul finally got something right.
So if there's no more questions and comments, I'll go from a somewhat heavy topic to some lighter things where we can celebrate all the good things that are going on in our schools. I would like to first congratulate Nadine Ocasio, who is a teacher at East Senior High School. She was recently recognized by being a recipient of the Bob Keffer Community Service Award. Nadine has been a force at East Senior and is one of the leads in organizing the Trojan Take Actions Day on an annual basis. So congratulations to Mrs. Ocasio. We also hosted our 5th grade district-wide track meet. That occurred on June 4th at East Senior High School, where students from across the district came to East Senior High School and engaged in a day filled of physical activity, competition, fun events. It was a wonderful day. I had the pleasure to stop by, and our elementary principals were there. Wonderful opportunity. Thank you to East Senior for hosting us, and to Marissa, our athletic director, for her organization and leadership in that. I'd also like to recognize some students who were recipients of Section 6 Track Championship Awards, and two students who went on to compete at the state level. At West Middle School, our students received some awards in recognition for their participation in the 2025 Darien Lake Music Festival. They received first place in their division, and they also won the Grand Judges Award. So that was the overall top prize for all competing groups. So congratulations to our singers at West Middle School. Last week on Tuesday and Thursday night, I had the opportunity to attend the West Senior was Tuesday night, East Senior was Thursday night, our Community Scholarship Awards. And this is an opportunity for our seniors to accept and receive local scholarships. These are scholarships that are from our employees, our unions, our boosters, like our athletic boosters and music boosters, local businesses, and many memorial scholarships that are given in memory and in honor of loved ones who have passed. In all, between the two nights, our graduating seniors received over $150,000 in local scholarships. So that's aside from any academic scholarships they might receive from a college. This is just local scholarships that our students received. And I think that's really reflective of an amazing community that values education and supports our students. So thank you to all of the sponsors and donors of those scholarships. And then I'd just like to highlight a few upcoming events as the school year winds down. Someone recently said it's winding down like a tornado. But as the school year winds down, just a reminder that we do not have school on Thursday this week for the Juneteenth holiday. Next week, we get to look forward to the milestone of what we all work towards when our students cross the stage at graduation. We'll be celebrating the graduation of West Senior on June 23rd and East Senior on June 24th. And then our Board of Education will have their reorganizational meeting on July 1. So those are my updates for you. Happy to entertain any questions that you have, but it's been a wonderful way to wrap out the school year with a lot of positive things as we conclude the school year.
Thank you. We'll move on to the board president's report, and this is partially from me, but also from the board members. Vince, thank you for serving for the 3 years. I know you and I are the longest serving board members here. 3 years ago, when you won alongside with me, I couldn't have been more excited to get to work with you. You've always been great in the community, but working alongside you for the 3 years, the knowledge that you brought to this place, the passion, you've never been afraid to ask the important questions. You've never hidden from anything. You're always respectful doing it. I'm sorry, I don't want to be emotional. You're not going away like for good.
I'm not going that far.
I just want to say that in the 3 years, and I think the board will back me up on this, you've interviewed and you've done interview committees, and it's been amazing working with you. You've got our back on when we've written to, lawmakers and stuff on things. You've helped us write letters. I mean, all of the stuff that you have brought to this board has been above and beyond what even I've ever done. So I thank you. We thank you. We thank your family, and we look forward to getting you on committees and working other than on the board with us. But that's it. Thank you. And you can keep your name tag.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
And providing nothing else crazy happens next couple of weeks, this is your last meeting, but we do look forward to having you till the end of the month. And again, we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, if I might, I'd just like to say I
Absolutely.
did right, yeah. It's certainly been an honor and privilege to serve the community in this capacity. And I've learned a great deal these past 3 years, and I've met with failure and frustration at times, as well as success and satisfaction. I do have some regrets and wish we could have done more to move the district ahead, but leave knowing that the district's in a better place than when I started, and that's mainly due to the fact that we found a level 5 leader in Dr. Kruger. She has vision and high expectations, and she is in the process of completing a strategic plan which will elevate all aspects of this organization. And while I'll no longer be a voting member of the Board of Education, I will continue to be an advocate for our schools and students, and will be a voice for those in the community. And I look forward to taking advantage of the 3 minutes allotted to me during public comment from time to time, and then not having to stay until the end of the meeting. But it's been an honor and privilege to work with all of you, certainly past board members as well. In particular, Diane Beers, it was tremendous. The great Jan Delbo, and my dear friends Molly Dana and Liz Gates. Just a tremendous opportunity to get to know people better and get to work in this capacity as an educator. It has grown me professionally as well, just being able to sit in this seat. So thank you. My honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to, we're going to have a code of conduct presentation. Jackie Fowler, you want to join us, or do you want to say anything else?
Thank you. I'd like to thank Jackie for her leadership in this area. She stepped in recently to really take the lead on the revisions to our code of conduct, which I am grateful for. She's going to share an overview of the code of conduct, and as I mentioned previously, we will have this available for public comment for 30 days before the board ultimately adopts the code of conduct.
Good evening, everyone. So just to give you a little background information on the Code of Conduct, the Code of Conduct is a document that is utilized throughout the district, not only for staff, students, but as well as visitors, and anyone who's really kind of participating in anything within the district. It outlines some expectations and how in which that we would want to be able to treat one another and how we should be treated as individuals as well. So we have a Code of Conduct Committee that reviews the Code of Conduct every year. And this year we met over a series of meetings, and the committee includes teachers, administrators, staff, members of our bargaining units, and just to get a variety of different perspectives. I'm not going to go through the entire Code of Conduct. I'm going to highlight where the changes are, and as Dr. Kruger mentioned in her previous presentation, it will be available for the public to view and to provide any comment. You will see in the in the document that it is highlighted for any changes, and anything that we are looking to remove has a strike through, as well as any new information it is highlighted. And today I'm just going to go over what some of those changes are. So, as you can see on the slides, I didn't list the exact changes, so I'm just going to highlight what some of those changes are. So on the definitions page, which is at the beginning of the document, we added the definition for school day, which aligns with what Dr. Kruger mentioned in regards to the new law related to the use of electronic devices. So we felt that it was important to highlight what constitutes the school day so that everyone is made aware of that is all aspects of the day, instructional time, non-instructional time, including homeroom periods, lunch, recess, study halls, and passing time. Then to proceed through the document, everything else remains the same until you get to the section on student use of electronic communication devices. And this section had the most changes, and it aligns with the new law, the New York State's Distraction-Free Schools Law. It outlines that students may not use any personal technology devices. That includes anything that is internet enabled, cell phones, smart watches, earbuds, those things that were also referenced in Dr. Kruger's previous report. This also outlines any of those exceptions to the enforcement of this law and policy that will be subsequent, that the board will look at in the near future. And that's outlined for students who may have medical needs that require the use of a device, any student who has an IEP or a 504 plan, any students who require translation services. So it includes that in our code. So it's very clear to both students and families what those exceptions would be and how in which we would interpret the ability to be able to access any of those. Also, our previous code of conduct highlighted zones in which the devices could be used, and that is still listed in this draft document so folks can see what it previously was and what we're proposing, and that it all has a strike-through text feature through it so everyone can see that that would be removed. As we worked through the code of conduct, we had a minor change in the area of dress code. One section included that shirts, dresses must have fabric in the front. We added the word front and back, and on the sides, just some minor editing components that also happen within the document. Similarly, we added additional information under the area of prohibited student conduct, engaging in conduct that is disruptive, insubordinate, or disorderly. And these were also things that the committee brought forth in terms of loitering on or about school property that is prohibited, and that only one student is permitted to be in a bathroom stall at a time. The next section highlights additional areas in terms of conduct that endangers the safety, morals, health, or welfare of others. And based on feedback from the committee, we added a few components or examples of this. that included areas such as instigating, encouraging, and promoting any verbal or physical altercations, also looking at any behavior that is sexual in nature, any cyber violations, which would be the unauthorized use of technology for bullying, intimidating, threatening, and other factors similar to that. And we also felt the need to add a section about prohibiting the use of gambling in gambling apps. As you can see, the code tries to stay current with some things that are happening, and our committee takes a look at what has been going on kind of throughout the year, and might be some areas in where we can kind of define things a little bit better so everyone is made aware of things. The next section is under penalties and consequences, and that is page 19. And we wanted to reflect that as a district, we're starting to work through the restorative practices approach. We are certainly not there 100% or implementing it across the board, but we are also wanting to make sure that we are using some of those approaches when possible and when applicable. Our high schools are receiving training, they did as well this year, but just to bring forth that idea of how we can repair and restore as part of the consequence or as part of a deterrent for students. Additionally, you'll see on page 29, it talks about visitors to the school. And this was important to add the language in there because as part of our district safety committee, we are bringing forth the Raptor, the Raptor Visitor Management System, which we felt was important to include in the code of conduct, that any visitor that enters our school that will be entering through our main offices will receive a visitor badge that will have their photo on it, and that is part of the Raptor Visitor Management System. I know there was a communication that went out to the community about that, and we're looking at starting that this summer. And again, just the dissemination and review of the code of conduct. It will be made available electronically. It's on the website. It will be once it is finalized and adopted as well. But just to let everyone know and remind everyone that there will be a 30-day public comment period, and the document will be made available on our website, and directions or information as to how to provide comment if you so choose. Just wanted to just highlight, it is in alignment with the New York State Distraction-Free Schools Law that is new to all of our schools in New York State this year, and that we hope to have it adopted by the Board of Education at the July 22nd meeting. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Sounds good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to 5, personnel. May I have a motion for agenda item number 5, please?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 5.
Marla, motion to approve. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second. Any discussion on it? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. Move on to 6, personnel again. May I have a motion for agenda item number 6, please?
I'll make the motion.
Vince makes a motion to approve agenda item number 6. May I have a second? If not, I'll second. Add second to agenda item number 6. Any discussion on the matter? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Nope. Passes 7-0. Move on to number 7, consent agenda. If I can have a motion to approve 8 through 9. There's no discussion, so motion to approve 8 through 9, please. Or 8 and 9.
I'll make a motion to approve 8 and 9. I'll second.
Marla, motion to approve. Laura, second. No discussion. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Passes 7-0. And we have Dr. Kruger's going to recognize now.
Thank you, Mr. Bedian. I'd like to invite John Cervoni, our Assistant Superintendent for Administration Operations, to come up. Through tonight's personnel recognition, we appointed someone who's in attendance tonight that we'd like to recognize and welcome to the team. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cervoni to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Kruger, Board of Education. I'd like to recognize all members, any employee being appointed tonight. But Michael, I'd like you to stand. This is Michael Radasta. Michael was just approved to become our next Director of Technology after the retirement of Scott Firkins. I will just say, throughout the interview process, Michael really impressed all stakeholders with, one, his technological understanding and brilliance, quite honestly, and really a passion for teamwork and an understanding of the role that a Director of Technology and the entire department plays in supporting teaching, learning, in all departments across the district. There isn't much that happens in our district that doesn't rely upon technology in some way, shape, or form. Michael brings an incredible amount of experience and background in both educational leadership and technical systems management. Most recently, he is serving as Director of Data and Technology at the Enterprise Charter School, and he is leading technology integration, implementation, and just really a passion for how to support teaching and learning and the magic that happens in our classrooms and across our departments. Michael, I'm so excited to have you join our team. The future is bright. I know you are here with some family, so if you could introduce them and they could stand to be recognized, we'd like to welcome you to West Seneca.
If I can remember all. This is my son Philip. This is my daughter Juliet. And then I have some extended family here on the in-law side. We're going to go get dinner afterwards.
They're going to Schwabel's, I heard, so that's West Seneca approved. So, whole family, thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. Welcome to West Seneca. We look forward many years to come, and congratulations. Others that are mentioned in the presentation I don't believe are here, but I'd like to congratulate them on some promotions and some new hires. So also welcome to those people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cervoni. And welcome, Michael. Thrilled to have you on the team.
Move on to number 10. May I have a motion for 10A, please?
I'll make a motion to pass number 10.
Maureen, motion to pass. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
We'll go to Sarah. I heard her first. Okay, any discussion on the matter? All in favor? Aye. Passes, anyone against? Passes 7-0. If I may have a motion for 10B, please.
I'll make a motion to approve 10B.
Laura, motion to approve. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Maureen, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. May I have a motion for 10C, please?
I'll make a motion to approve 10C.
Marla,
I'll second.
Laura will second. Any discussion on 10C? Okay. Anyone, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Aye. Passes 6-1. Move on to number 11, Board of Education discussion. Okay. We're the Board of Education, we're going to discuss, but I'll kind of let Lisa kick it off.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just wanted an opportunity to frame the discussion that the board's about to engage in, and I'm sure many of the residents in attendance are eager to hear of our latest developments and how we will be advancing following the recommendation of our redistricting committee. So some things that I'd like to just help to frame tonight's discussion. As you know, we are responding to our current enrollment issues, and the committee was charged with articulating the priorities that respond to those needs. I'd like to also talk about the word equity that has been used throughout this process, both on our end, and we've heard feedback from public comment and feedback from the community. And what does equity mean, and what do I believe we should be striving for as a school community when it comes to achieving equity? and how both redistricting or reconfiguration may influence that. I think it's important that we consider the two recommendations that were made by the redistricting committee and honor the work of that committee. But I also want to recognize that at the June 3rd meeting, our board asked us to study and analyze two additional options, and I'll give an overview of those options. For us to do that study of those additional options, we're going to need some time to do that. And so I have a plan that I'm going to be recommending to the board regarding that study and the implications that it could potentially have on our timeline. Coupled with this is the future and use of our Winchester Academy that is currently leased by BOCES and implications for our long-range facilities planning. And then I'll close with my recommendations for you to consider tonight as a Board of Education and have some conversation regarding that recommendation. So with this is a recap of what the priorities were and the charge that was given to our redistricting committee, and that charge was articulated to the redistricting committee and finalized what their charge was in terms of the critical priorities for the redistricting committee, which were really focused on the enrollment and capacity issues that we have in some of our schools and how to best respond and solve that problem. Additionally, there were some things that were considered important but not critical, important but if they were possible. So for example, those bullet points listed there, being mindful of the amount of travel that a student has or whether or not a student attends their neighborhood school, were things that the board asked the redistricting committee to consider. This word equity has been used both by us in our messaging and also from the community as we heard through public comment and feedback. And I think it's important for us to really unpack what that word means since it's used pretty frequently. Equity does not mean everyone gets exactly the same thing and it is exactly equal in all that people get. But equity really means recognizing that our schools and our students may be in different starting places, and schools that have higher need may need more supports than a school with less need. And so when we're trying to provide an equitable education, this is important for us to be mindful and keep in mind. As I see this as the leader of the school district, of how this impacts our work, and what I see as priorities in the name of equity, those priorities should be that we have appropriate class sizes in all of our schools, that we have appropriate instructional spaces in all of our schools. Those should be non-negotiables for us in the name of equity. That we have equitable funding for programming that allows extracurricular activities, field trip experiences, things of that nature. That in all of our schools, we are meeting the New York State learning standards and delivering a curricula that accomplishes that. And that in all of our schools, we have high quality education delivered by caring adults. And most importantly, I believe in all of that, is that we recognize that through that equity that we're striving for, that a true comprehensive school experience reflects student voice and student interest. What I've listed on the right side are things that I don't believe are our goal in the name of equity. It does not mean that we offer all of the exact same clubs in our two high schools, or that we go on the exact same field trips in our middle schools, or that our PTOs host the exact same events, or we have the exact same school assemblies in all of our schools. That's not equity. That's trying to fit a cookie cutter approach to our schools, and it does not reflect student interest. If, for example, one of our schools has a real interest of the student body to launch a robotics club or a drone club to explore flying drones, I want to be responsive to that and support student interest. If that same interest isn't on the other side of town and in the other high school, that's okay, as long as we are providing extracurricular opportunities and experiences in an equitable manner. We're funding them in a similar manner and giving opportunities for students to explore their interest. It does not mean that everything has to be equal in both high schools, in both middle schools, or in all 5 elementary schools. If we're striving for that, I think we're really missing the goal of a comprehensive education, which is being reflective and responsive to student interest. So that issue of inequity is really what led to us diving into the redistricting process. The 2 points listed at the top, not having appropriate class sizes and not having appropriate instructional spaces, were the goals and priorities of this process. So with that, our committee, as you know, went off and did work throughout the fall leading up to the June 3rd presentation, where Tony Day gave an overview of the options that were under considerations and those options that were either supported by the committee or eliminated by the committee. This was gone over in tremendous detail at the June 3rd meeting, which that recording is available if anyone wants to view that in greater detail. I'm going to give a brief summary of that just to recap. So one of the recommendations that was made by the committee is what is referred to as base redistricting, and that's shifting students that currently attend Clinton to Northwood Elementary on the east side, and students that currently attend Allendale to Winchester Potters. The committee did also note that we should give some exploration as to where the best programming is for our E&L program. Should it be concentrated on the east side of town, or should we have E&L supports and opportunity and services on both sides of town? So that was a recommendation of that committee. The second possible recommendation was regarding redistricting on the west side, where Allendale students went to Winchester Potter, and on the east side, to alleviate the east side crowding issues and capacity issues, that grade 5 from both Northwood and Clinton was repositioned to the East Middle School building. And as you'll see here, what I've highlighted in red, our committee did not have consensus on that. They felt they were not able to adequately support that recommendation, and it would require more time and more consideration to explore what those program implications were. And as you know, I made a note here at the bottom that the board did express interest in studying that, wanting to know the feasibility and any pros and cons related to shifting 5th grade from Northwood and Clinton to East Middle School. We have not, of course, had the time to be able to study and analyze that since the June 3rd meeting, but that is a request that the Board of Education had. Then next was the possible recommendation number 3, the base redistricting that I previously highlighted for you, plus West Middle School's use of creative scheduling, reassigning of rooms, reappointment of classrooms to alleviate some of the crowding and capacity issues that they have at West Middle. It would alleviate some teachers from having instruction, being on a cart and having no assigned instructional space. And as you may recall, the redistricting committee really felt that that wasn't necessary for them to make a recommendation related to that, that simply the administration of the building and how the building principal assigns classrooms could help to alleviate some of the teacher situation of teachers being on carts and not having adequate instructional spaces. It would alleviate some, but not all of the issues at West Middle School. And then the last was possible recommendation number 4, that elementary base redistricting, but this then also extended to the middle school and high school, where that area highlighted in green that is south of Cazenovia Creek and east of Union Road, they have been attending schools on the west side for both middle school and high school, and the recommendation here was that they would attend east side middle school, meaning East Middle School and East High School, to help alleviate the capacity issue at West Middle School and to bring about more balanced enrollment between the East and West Middle and High Schools. That recommendation did reach consensus by our redistricting committee, as you may recall, from June 3rd. So where that really left us on June 3rd was the standing recommendations from the redistricting committee, that they had recommended option number 1, which is base redistricting for the elementary level, and also for the board to consider option number 2, which is that base redistricting with the additional component of shifting that section that was highlighted in green would attend East Middle and East High School. So with that, we had some discussion following Tony Day's presentation, and the board had an opportunity to ask questions and to give feedback. Among the points of feedback were that there was a request for us to analyze the feasibility of the West Side base redistricting plus Clinton and Northwood grade 5 going to East Middle School, and a board member also asked us to analyze the feasibility of elementary reconfigurations. And by that meaning that we would have elementary schools that are pre-K to 2 elementary schools and grade 3 through 5 elementary schools. And the wonderment was, would a model such as pre-K to 2 at Northwood and 3 through 5 at Clinton solve the capacity issues on the east side, and potentially a reconfiguration of pre-K to 2 at Allendale and Winpot Elementary, and then this school, West Elementary, would house grades 3 through 5. And the board asked, is that feasible? Before making a decision, we'd like to know, are those options feasible options? Because as reflected in the good work that the redistricting committee did, they did not have the time to analyze deeply those two options. So this is a quote that I want to share with you that are words that I truly try to live by every day. It's by author and speaker Brene Brown. I'm not here to be right, I'm here to get it right. I have no personal vested interest in what the outcome is other than it is the right outcome for our students. That's that I'm striving for, that we have to get this right for our students, both short-term to alleviate the capacity and classroom instructional needs that we have, but also long-term so that we're not back at this table in the very near future revisiting this. So I think it's important that you as a board, and you have had your eye on wanting to get this right, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate that based on the questions and the feedback from June 3rd, that you're likely not in a position to make a final decision tonight. So based on that, my recommendations for you to consider tonight are that we utilize the summer to study the two options that have not been deeply studied, that relocation of 5th grade from Northwood and Clinton to the East Middle School campus, and the elementary reconfiguration of pre-K to 2 and grades 3 through 5 that would be district-wide impact. We will need some time to do that. We are fairly confident that from an enrollment and building capacity that it is doable. The greatest challenge for us to work through is that of transportation. What are the transportation implications of having a bus go through a neighborhood and then having to drop off pre-K to 2 students, and then also having to accommodate that same neighborhood for grade 3 through 5 students? What does that look like from a transportation standpoint? So we're going to need some time to be able to analyze that, to see the feasibility of that from transportation. So what I'd like to recommend to the board is that we take the summer to analyze those two additional options, and that in the fall, I come back to you with the outcome of those findings. That in the fall, I would do an overview of the 4 options that are still at hand, the 2 that were recommended for consideration to the board by the redistricting committee, and then the additional 2 options that the board expressed an interest in at the June 3rd meeting. That I give an overview and really highlight the pros and cons of each of those 4 options. Because while I wish there was a perfect solution that had only pros and no cons, I think you will find that each option that we're going to consider has both pros and cons to it. It might be a pro and con around travel time to a particular school. It may be a pro or con about the number of transitions that our students experience. It may be a pro and con around transportation or other things. And I think it's important that we understand how many students would be impacted by this change, the scope of the students being impacted, and really all of the benefits or limitations of each of those 4 options. Once we do that, and I've outlined all the pros and cons that we believe to be pros and cons of the options, I think we present those 4 options and then allow for public comment. It's important for our community, for parents and residents to be able to give us feedback before the board ultimately makes a final decision. And so allow there to be a public comment period where people can weigh in on those 4 options. And then ultimately, after analyzing which of the options we believe to be in our students' best interest first and foremost, in our students' best interest, and the most viable and feasible plan, I would ultimately make a recommendation to the Board of Education for your acceptance or for additional feedback. So with that, I think it's natural to ask the question, does this mean that the changes will still go into effect in September of '26? I think it's certainly feasible that it could go into effect in September of '26 if we take the summer to analyze the 2 additional options and then present those findings in the fall and allow for public comment and feedback. If we have a finalized plan selected by December, I think it's very reasonable that we take from December until September. That would be 9 months for us to work on all of the logistical planning, the support and transitional planning that we need for our students, the shifts that it would occur to staffing. Having 9 months to do that, to both support our students and to support our staff and families through that transition, seems very reasonable. If it goes beyond December or January, we may need to reconsider that timeline and may need to reconsider whether or not it can be implemented in the fall of '26 and potentially push it to the fall of '27. But right now, I would still like to work under the premise that we accomplish the goal that we had initially set out to, is that we alleviate the class size and the school capacity concerns that we have for the fall of '26. And I think lastly is that currently our Winchester Academy is being utilized by BOCES. BOCES has a desire to lease that building for the '26-27 school year, which could have implications for our redistricting options and where offices are relocated to, or simply space that we have available within the district. So that's another factor for us to consider in all of this. So I'd like to, give you as a board time to reflect on that, to ask questions, to give feedback related to my recommendations for next steps, for further study, for an update on the 4 options that are being considered, public comment, and then ultimately my recommendation that I anticipate would occur this fall.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone got any questions, anything they want to ask? I'll just start with a quick comment. I love the fact that we have the ability and I'm assuming it's not looking to do like a whole committee again, it's more of a deep dive with the people that like transportation and that we get through that part, get the pros and cons, and then give a whole time for a forum and public input at that point, as opposed to putting the ideas out consistently over the next month or 2 months to then have people all trying to figure out what does that mean with, get the information gathered and then do a time for people to think about it and then ask questions and bring things up, and I appreciate that. It's a good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's one of the concerns we've heard all along, is that our students are not numbers. And while we can all agree with that, the first logical step is to figure out how do we make the numbers work. And I think this is the next logical step. Is this really feasible? What plans have the most pros with the fewest cons? And we need to see that before we can make an informed decision.
I appreciate you saying that our students are not numbers. The reason why we started this journey was to provide a better educational experience for our students. They are our motivation behind this. It's not that anyone concocted a plan to disrupt children and to disrupt families. The whole motivation in doing this is to provide a better and more equitable educational experience for the very children that we serve.
I've always looked at this as an opportunity to really look at the way that we do school, and that necessity is often the mother of invention, and we need to look at the buildings we have, look at our community, and find a way to do it better. I've been a strong advocate for the primary and elementary configuration, because I believe it brings children together at an earlier age, and it begins to build stronger relationships within the community. I also, as a leader of the school, when you have a pre-K to 2 building,
or pre-K to 3 building, excuse me. Pre-K to
Pre-K to 2.
Okay. You can really focus your instructional practice around best practices within that building. When you have a building where you have pre-K to 5, a much different type of professional development within that building. Also with the goal of having equity and having some better balance. The more pots you have, the more classes that you have, the better you can get even. I think we need to go back, and I think this board needs to continue to go back and look at our class size guides. We have, in 1995, one of the failures I feel like I've had, we've not had time to have that discussion. 24 in a kindergarten class, 24 in a first grade class, so 20 to 24 are the guidelines. So that's a big, you should not be that far off. You should not have 18 like we currently have in some instances, and 26 in the same grade level across the district. That needs to be addressed. Redistricting is not going to address that. Reconfiguration will address that. That's why I think that is a more solid direction to move in, to solve that particular problem. And by solving that problem, you will have benefits from it as well. I understand there will be additional transitions, but students will transition together. They'll grow and they'll move forward together from day one. And that's what we should be striving for. Keep clapping. Get the rest of the people to clap when they say, I don't like it. There's going to be pain. Change comes with pain. But there will be opportunity with that, with those changes.
I think our focus needs to be the K-5, for sure, when we're looking at how we're moving forward. Most of this is to address that. And so I'm open to what that could look like.
And if I may respond to that, I believe in my assessment of what the previous committee had done, this is about a 3-year journey that we've been on to get to this point. The previous committee looked at reconfiguration with models of what I'll call one high school, an 8-9 high school, and a 10-12 high school, in addition to elementary redistricting. And in my assessment and reflection, that was very robust for a committee to take on. What I would recommend that we consider looking at as a possible 2-phase process of this, that first we solve the elementary configuration or redistricting dilemma that we have, because that's where the sense of urgency is around inequitable class sizes and inadequate instructional spaces, and focus on that K-5 level first, because that is the most critical right now. Long term, and what I'd like to propose as phase 2 of this, is that we continue this work of what do we envision and want our secondary level schools to look like. There are some very viable options that have been shared around either an 8-9 building and a 10-12 school building, where we're utilizing both high schools but in a different way. There's also been consideration to having school choice and have magnet or specialty schools, where we have a specialty school that focuses on STEM and can host the STEM Academy programs, and a specialty school that has the visual and performing arts potentially as their area of expertise. Those are all wonderful options for us to consider for the future vision of our district, but quite honestly, that's a lot for a committee to take on while they are also analyzing enrollment, class size usage at the elementary level. I believe it's most prudent that we solve the critical issue at the elementary level first, but that we continue that work, which is more visionary work, long-range financial planning for our facilities and how we invest in our facilities for future capital improvement projects, so that we are wisely investing in our facilities for the programs we want to offer within them.
I love the idea, and I know we don't want to look into the long-term plan of the high schools and all that. I think being careful with how we look at the elementary side, I don't want to do anything that'll then we have to do the opposite of in the future. So it seems like we analyze it, at least in the back of our head, we don't want to do anything that just stops any other progress. I mean, this is, I'll say this is usually the time in this whole process where everything just comes to a dead stop, and I really appreciate being willing to dive into everything more deeper and not just saying, okay, we're not going to do anything, we're going to give it time, we're going to keep going on this. And I know we want to hold on the phase 2, but I definitely don't want to make any decisions that'll then have to be undone in 5 years. So I just want to, hopefully that's cognizant of that. And then the other thing I want to point out is, and maybe I'll say it a little more eloquently here, we're making these decisions in a time of not as much stress as like what happened during COVID. We were looking at all of our schools coming back except for one school because there was absolutely no room to bring all those kids back. So a decision was made fairly quickly. The difference here is, and I'll say this, we're not putting no one's physically, life is in danger or health, but mentally I know we want to work on that. I'll point that out. But it's not because of a national emergency. It's not because a building's roof collapsed and we have to move. So we have a little bit of wiggle room to make those decisions. And that's why I think we should absolutely make sure we do it now instead of if something happens in the future. Not that I want a pandemic or a roof to collapse, but that's, again, I'll say physical health, not mental.
One of the things I think I'd like to see some information from, but we won't be able to really look at until the fall, is what the administrative changes at the middle school level look like, how it affects class sizes and those room rotations. And then obviously if we could have some time to really see what that change does for that building, I think that would help with the overall perspective. But elementary is where my focus is right now.
And I fully agree. And, if we're going to do something, it has to be done right. So I'm thankful for the deeper dive into those options, especially transportation, knowing the district's challenges with that over the past few years. And, we've just started to kind of get in such a good direction. I would hate to go backwards with not exploring all of that in detail.
And the wrench in that whole thing is how we're switching over to you can opt out. I'm assuming we're going to try to implement that next year. So that could change a lot of things. We're not going to see exactly how it could change, but I drive my kids every day.
Yes, I anticipate that it may give us some wiggle room for those that may not be familiar with what Mr. Bedian's referring to. We have students that do not participate in our bus program. They get driven to school at the high school level. They may be driving themselves, yet they're routed on a bus, and the bus is going through the neighborhood. And so we will be launching a parent survey where parents can opt out of transportation if they do not want to enlist in our transportation. If their plan, maybe their child participates in our before and after school childcare program that's on site at our schools and they don't need transportation. Right now, we haven't had a mechanism to not account for those students, and so all of those students are routed on a bus, which is not the most efficient way to handle our transportation. So through this, if we have a number of children that we realize we do not need to provide transportation for, it may allow for more flexibility when it comes to considering a reconfiguration option that has transportation implications with it.
Yeah, this feels like the right approach to me at this point in time, given the juncture that we're at. And I know, we've heard a lot from a subset of the parents that would be impacted by one or two of the plans. And I think this presents another opportunity to do a deeper dive into all of the options. Everybody sees the same analysis, has the same information, and we have an opportunity for public participation in each of those options, as noted in your recommendation, and I appreciate that.
And I think it's great to get input, and for, not to get input, but for people to have an opportunity to ask questions and get better answers. At the end of the day, this body has to make a decision. It's not a shared decision. It's this room right here making a decision for the community. Right? It's not a vote. The community's not coming in and voting on a plan. We are the trustees. You have to put forward a plan that you believe will solve the problems and make for better opportunities for kids. Because you're going to have people lined up that disagree with each of the options, but you're going to choose one. And just know that and feel good about that decision. Walk out of this room head high, knowing that you did what you were elected to do.
Thank you. Another point, UPK. It's basically kindergarten, right? I mean, as far as we're looking, eventually we're seeing it, it's going to be at all the kids are going to be able someday to participate in UPK, hopefully in district.
If grant funding continues to increase, and that's been the movement in New York State, is that universal pre-kindergarten opportunities for all children. We do not yet have grant funding that would allow us to provide that for all students. And our current model is we have some UPK classes in district, and we do partner still with community-based organizations. One of the requirements of the grant is that a minimum of 10% of our UPK classes are held within community-based organizations. But in these models, I think it's important that we account for, and as Mr. Day and the redistricting committee did, they did account for the capacity to hold UPK classes in both the two options that were presented and recommended by the redistricting committee. We're going to continue that and account for UPK classes in the reconfiguration model or the grade 5 transition to East Middle School model that we're going to further explore. Because I think it would be short-sighted not to account for pre-K or the expansion of pre-K, because that's certainly been the direction that New York State's been going.
Excellent. Anything else anyone wants to talk about? The last thing I'm going to throw out is, as this, I know we're looking into everything, we're not going to know the answers on the opt-out of transportation and that, but do we see, it feels to me like our bus situation, driver situation has improved. Seems like we're hopefully getting the people. I don't hear as much combined buses, that sort of thing. When transportation looks at this, if they don't think it's feasible of certain things, that would be because of more staffing, or would it be more of distance and, hey, we don't have times? I'd be curious, I guess what I'm saying is I'd be curious of their why. Hey, this is a really bad idea because we don't have the people. Or this is a really bad idea because it would increase kids getting to school late, or that. I'd like more of if they're going to give us, hey, this is a good idea or bad, a little more input as to what what it is behind it. I'm not implying you wouldn't do that, but that's what I'd be curious for, whether it's staffing or actual physical, we can't get kids to these buildings in time.
Okay. We can be sure to include that as a lens that we look through when we explore the feasibility of the options.
Appreciate it. Anything else? Okay. Anything else the board wants to discuss? I'll move on to public comment. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. I'll read my little speech here. The board will now entertain public comment for 30 minutes, with each speaker given 3 minutes. When called, please step up to the podium and state your name and address. Please be respectful in your comments and do not divulge any personal or confidential information. Thank you. I'll begin with Kenneth. Kenneth here? Thank you, Kenneth.
Hey. Kenneth Thompson, 109 Tudor Boulevard. I guess I'm here on behalf of my wife, myself, my family, and the community, but I had 2 main points I want to bring up today. I sent an email to all the board members earlier, just some things from the last meeting I wanted to discuss, so hopefully you guys read that and take that into consideration. But as I sat here and listened to the meeting today, I was happy to hear that some of the things that I thought are going to come to light here. I appreciate everyone working on this. I'm sad to see Vince leave. I appreciate the leadership from Dr. Kruger and the time that's spent into this, but I clearly thought, just like you guys, that more time needs to be spent on this. But 2 things I wanted to quickly mention today was the fact that the transparency has been brought up before, but I don't believe it's as transparent as we make it seem. It was brought up at the last meeting. I have neighbors as I walk around with my kids that have no idea this is happening. So your job is to get as much feedback as possible, I would assume, right? So if that's a problem, you guys should be talking about that. I'm not sure why you're not, but that's my concern. I could probably walk around my neighborhood and reach more people than you guys have with your emails. Just full disclosure. So that is something that I think you need to take in consideration. There's a lot of other things that we put a lot of information out there. You know, school board, like budgets, votes, all that stuff. I just don't think there was enough. I mean, maybe you think parents have their head in the sand or whatever the case or comments that have been made in the past, but I don't think that's true. I think there needs to be so much transparency that'll help in the long run, so you get less conflict at the end. I do agree with certain things like, you know, like Vin's proposals and, you know, like what, it might not work out for me, but it might be best overall. I don't think we can put a Band-Aid on this situation, and some of the plans that the committee came up with definitely are just a Band-Aid. I mean, heck, even the numbers suggest that, you know, you're going to be overcrowded as soon as you implement it day one, which I included that in my email. But I guess the last thing, besides the transparency I wanted to point out, is I haven't heard a lot of talk about the children that have mental health concerns. So, you know, how will this affect them, their careers and academics? I know you don't want personal information shared, but, you know, it's personal. But I can say from personal experience that dealing with a family member with anxiety, OCD disorders, that they will have a negative impact on kids, and that they have spent 3 to 4 years building relationships and behaviors, and they're basically, they could possibly start all over again. It's not great. So those are my 2 concerns. Hopefully you consider those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking. And, real quick, before we call Carol up, I will let everyone know, when we receive emails, if it's coming to just 1 or 2 board members, not everyone, I'm really impressed with how everyone's sharing it with each other and with Dr. Kruger and everything, so we're making a good effort at least to share the emails. But again, thank you for coming out to speak. How about Carol? How are you, Carol?
Hi, Ed.
Name and address, please.
Carol Jarczyk, 151 Laurelton Drive. I don't think I heard it, and maybe you guys said it. What about all these special needs kids? The 10, is it 10 to 2, 8, whatever, you know, the groups. Are they going to be split on either side of town possibly, where they won't be with their sibling any longer, where they feel safe and comfortable getting on the bus with their, you know, sibling? Is that been talked about? Hopefully they'll be able to stay where they are. And I know we can't keep everybody where they are, but I just thought I'd throw that out there, and I'm thankful my kids are older because this is not easy. I mean, we had one thing, East Elementary, we closed, and nothing's easy. And whether it's good or not, and Vince, good point. And I also wanted to ask, I think I know the answer, but 6A, it says it's abolished, but it's not going away, right? 6A?
I can get back to you, get the answers for you on
Okay.
that, and reach out
Because
to
I
you.
know as a district, we have to have that position. And when I saw abolish, I thought, okay,
Myself or Lisa, we can get you those.
okay.
answers.
I just wondered.
We have your email.
You know me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Anyone else, so that's my whole list.
I would like to talk.
I was gonna say, that's my whole list. Would anyone else like to come up and speak?
Hi, my name is Betty Reedy. I live on 1084 Mineral Springs Road. Reason why I'm up here, I know East Elementary is being mothballed. It's not being used. Can you answer why it's not if we have an overpopulation of children? But as the years come, I think we're declining of 1,500 or more. And back in the day, they used to teach students 30 per classroom. Now it's 22. And they would be able to handle the 30 students. And they were in classrooms being advanced, middle, or need help. So there was like 3 third grades, 3 fourth grades. As far as redistricting and keeping the children a part of the peers that they grew up with, I think is wrong. I think we should stick together. And as far as the high school, they're on college level, a lot of the kids. Teachers do go back and forth with their cart when the room is vacant. I can't see anything wrong with a teacher on the cart, teaching a classroom and going and leaving. That's high school and it's almost college level. That is my opinion. Our enrollment is declining. We got to keep our east and west together as far as separate but together for our students. We have, like I said, we had full capacity at one time. It's declining. 30 students per classroom. What happened? That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
She had something that she told me. Did that come back up?
Yeah, you had like I don't remember, we had like 47 seconds or a
Okay.
minute or...
As far as transportation, we have a beautiful supervisor. Her name is Jen. We are working and correcting the problem of transportation. As far as being a taxpayer of West Seneca, of giving a person the right of taking transportation or being taken, I think it's wrong. I think you're talking about children communicating. They communicate on a bus. I'm a bus attendant for West Seneca School System. I think what we have for transportation is just right. I don't think it should be an optional thing. If you went at elementary schools and seen how many children are dropped off, and we got to sit back while they're being dropped off, wrong. They all should be on a bus communicating, talking about their friends, talking about classroom. That's what we're talking about with phones. Eliminate phones. Another thing with phones. Who is responsible? You're putting their phone in a locker, all right? A lot of parents have a thing on their phone where they know where they are. We got kids that are going to cut school, all right? What happens if there's an accident and their parents can't trace them where they are? They got a tracker on their phones. Mom and dads have trackers on their phones. Who's going to be responsible if that student doesn't have a phone on them and it was an accident? Is the school system going to be sued, or is our government who's making this rule going to be sued? Somebody's going to be liable because they didn't have their phone on them to be tracked down.
Yeah. Thank you. We can catch up with you if you got...
Okay.
Thank you. Sir? Yep. Hi. Name and address, sir. Thank you.
Yep, Dan Scott, 26 Pine Valley Court. First, I'd like to thank the board for listening to all of our feedback, all these weeks, all the emails, everything. You guys are fighting a no-win situation, and we know that, and we know we're being harsh, but it's for our kids. Now, I fully understand the need for equality and agree with the scope of acceptable differences between schools based on the needs of each specific student body. However, major life decisions have been made to give our families specific experiences and opportunities available at the schools assigned to the homes we're looking to buy. If this board decides to move schools at no fault of the families or students and take those planned and available opportunities away from the students, it then becomes the responsibility of the board and the school administrations to see that those opportunities are still available. That is the transition point from equality to equity. It's not that the move across the district won't be successful for our students. The schools on both sides of town are all strong schools. It's that it puts more work on the board and the schools to make sure that the experiences of our students aren't being sacrificed in order to preserve or lift up the experiences of others. That equality versus equity graphic we saw earlier shows that all three kids are getting the same outcome in the end as the equitable solution. As things stand right now, the east-west move doesn't end that way. That's all. So it adds more to your plate and to the plate of the admin and to the plate of the staff, but it's not that it can't be done. It's just more to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, that concludes our public comment section. Thank you. Now, I know it says number 13, adjournment, but I do want to do a short executive session if the board will approve it.
Only if Laura's the only one to talk.
Well, I'll have Laura talk. So if I can, again, what we'll do is we're going to go to a brief executive, and when we come back, we'll adjourn the meeting. We're not looking to conduct any public business after executive. So if I can have a motion to go in executive session for contract discussions, regarding a person or persons.
I'll make a motion to go into executive.
Laura?
Second it.
Sarah, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Pass 7-0. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Have a great evening.